The Schechter Rabbinical Seminary recently conferred rabbinic ordination on its 100th graduate and marked 30 years of ordaining conservative Masorti rabbis in Israel. At a ceremony held last week, 3 new rabbis joined the leadership of the Masorti movement. We heard more about the ceremony and the state of pluralistic Judaism from Rabbi Avi Novis-Deutsch, Dean of the Schechter Rabbinical Seminary.
First, overall, it was a very exciting event. It took place in one of the Masorti congregation in Jerusalem, in Moreshet Avraham, in the presence of about 200 people. And we had 3 fine now rabbis that studied with us for 3 years or more, and we ordained them on last Thursday, basically. And they actually reflect, and they come from very different backgrounds. 2 of them were born in Israel and raised, one actually in a settlement, the other in a relatively low-income surrounding in Haifa, and the third one made immigration from Chile to Israel. And he actually knew already when coming to Israel that part of his journey was going to end up in a rabbinical school.
So if for one, he knew he was going to end up in rabbinical school, what about the evolution or the path of others?
So for one of them, Matan is well immersed in text and very interested in Judaic studies. He's also an expert in Jewish languages and in languages in general. He teaches Ladino on a regular basis. And I think it was a step forward where understanding this knowledge is not just about having a knowledge, but it's also having an opinion and having a voice to share, and motivation for education to a whole phenomena that is happening in Israel, a more thirst to Judaism and more need for people to know and make more room for their Judaism, but from where they are, not with any a sense of obligation or someone is forcing me to do it. But so Matan is really an educator, and that, I think, was his main motivation, and also his full commitment to Judaism and to the Jewish religion. And Yos, actually, in a way, he grew up in a less observant surrounding, and he was very involved in the protest, in the social-economical protest in the summer of 2011. And the more he was immersed in it, he realized that part of the language that Israel needs should derive from its Jewish roots. He went through some seminars that were about social justice and tikkun olam, and that led him to understand that he really, really needs to invest in his Jewish identity and his Jewish journey. And he started first to learn and to get to know more, and then he decided that if he wanted to be a leader talking about social justice from a Jewish perspective, the best way to do it is to be a rabbi. And he joined our cohort and did an amazing journey toward becoming a rabbi, and motivated to have both influence on the issues of social justice as well as the issues of bringing together Ashkenazi and Sephardi groups and crowds, and to make a voice for people who are less heard.
So the trajectory is not necessarily always leading to a pulpit, but it's taking this knowledge and applying it in many other areas, often in education and activism.
Well, first of all, I think that even in North America, there's a major change in what the graduates end up doing. Not all of them, and actually, I think now you can talk about 50% that are ending up in the pulpit. I think part of the message that is more and more part of where Israel is as well is that you need to meet people where they are. You need to offer opportunities for people where they are, and we're talking about generations that taking full identity as being part of something such as congregation is less how people do those things. They're more shoppers. They're more going from place to place. They check opportunities. So in order to meet these needs, I think you need a much more versatile rabbi, a much more flexible rabbi on the way he works, and to really be able to be there in the field, to be there out, and to meet people where the need comes by, where they want you. It's not, you can't wait for them in the synagogue and in the building and hope for them to join in. You really need to offer Judaism in very varied ways, and also in all places.
Pulling back a little bit, taking a look at the larger picture, how would you assess the situation of pluralistic Judaism in Israel at this time?
It's an interesting period, I think. First of all, I think I don't know what the next election campaign going to be about, but religion and state became more and more of an issue in the Israeli discourse in the recent years. And I think that's promising in a way that tells that Israelis are now ready to understand that that developing a Jewish state is not just a statement, it's also we need to figure out what the content that comes with it, what we really mean by saying that this is a Jewish state and not just a night shelter for the Jews, but something more than that. And I think also the discourse among the people is much more about I'm choosing my own identity. It's not anymore about dati chiloni, secular observant. It's really about I'm Jewish. I'm choosing my track. I have my own identities. There are many ways to be Jewish. All of them are okay. I like the way you do your Judaism, but I'm doing it differently, and you should make room to my Judaism. So I think there's lots of shift about that. In terms of the political level, on the other hand, due to the way our political system works, are minority groups that have too much power, from my perspective, in the system, and they actually call the shots and dictate what to do to other people. So when majority of the Israelis actually believe in supporting all the streams and giving legal status to different rabbis who officiate at marriage and allow people to be buried the way they want to, that's the majority of Israelis and even the majority of Jews in Israel. And coalition systems leaders, and due to that, they stop the Kotel compromises. They're holding the conversion issues in a place that is not right for Israel at the time, and they also play lots with the budget that actually enables certain groups to have much more power in the Israeli discourse, in the Israeli education system, and other potential situations.
So do you see something shifting in that equation in the future, both in the relationships and the situation here in Israel, also as well as in terms of how these issues play out in the Israel diaspora relations?
So you're asking two questions. I think on the first question, I think it's a bottom-up situation where the way people going to end up how the society will act. We know it's hard to approximate, but at least 25% of the couples who are getting married in Israel, even though the only way to get registered in Israel as married is via the chief rabbinate, are getting married outside of the chief rabbinate. Some people even push this number to 50%. It's hard to tell, but it's definitely a huge number. There are more and more opportunities to eat kosher without a kosher certificate because of the same questions. And there's much more Judaism happening outside of the governmental supervised system. And I think this will end up gaining power in the political system as well. And there will be politicians that will understand that actually giving voice to these views that are actually well spreaded in the Israeli society is something that is worth the effort politically. It actually pays to go with this kind of message. I think in a way, Lieberman is going with this message, and it works for him. And I think the change is there. It's tricky because we don't really know how our next coalition is going to look like. But I think there's a fair chance that the next coalition will already push the balance toward more pluralism and toward allowing many ways to be Jewish in Israeli society, and if not in the next regime. So I think in the recent future it's going to end up happening that way. And in terms of Israeli diaspora, I think that's I'm happy that we play a role in the rabbinical school. We actually make room for our students to study with their colleagues that are coming from North America and Latin America and Europe to study part of the obligatory rabbinical track in all the institutes outside of Israel is a year in Israel. So we actually enable our students to study together with students from Europe, North America, and Latin America. But I think the situation is tough. I think that Israelis are not aware of the fact that even though we might be the biggest Jewish group among the Jews, we're still not the majority of the Jews in the world at all. I think most Israelis have no clue about that. And I think that the notion of peoplehood, the notion of Arevim Zeh Bazeh, of caring about each other, is not a strong enough notion in our education, in the way we identify. People feel more locally located. They don't see Jews in other countries or as fellows or as part of the same family. And I think that's actually now happening in both sides of the ocean, like both in Israel and in Europe and mainly in the United States. I think people are asking, to what extent are we connected? Why are we connected? Lots need to be done about that. We as a seminary are trying to do our best to create the channels and to create the tracks, and the Masorti movement is doing its effort in that field as well. But I think it's a big issue, and it's unclear to me where we're heading.
Rabbi Avi Novis-Deutsch, Dean of the Schechter Rabbinical Seminary.